Flow Unleashed.
Would you say that you enjoy a deep sense of meaning to your life? Do you know what day-to-day actions are your most meaningful? Welcome to Flow Unleashed. I'm Dr. Cameron Norsworthy, scientist and high-performance coach to multiple world champions. In this show, we unpack key insights on specific topics so that you are kept up to date with the latest science and practice of human performance. Psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl suggested in his 1946 book, Man's Search for Meaning, that the primary motivation of a person is to discover their meaning in life. Frankl insisted that meaning can be discovered under all circumstances, even in the most dire or miserable experiences of loss and tragedy, for example. It is this sense of meaning that drives us to be the best version of ourselves. And when we have a clear sense of meaning and purpose, then we thrive and excel. Having a purpose in life and finding meaning in what we do is not just a luxury. It is a fundamental human need. However, for most people, feeling meaning and finding a real purpose in life is troublesome, or not obvious. In fact, most people find it hard to define their purpose in life. Researchers suggest that people with a purpose in life are happier, more motivated, less likely to experience regulatory issues during decision-making, and find it easier to make positive, health-related lifestyle decisions. According to one study from Bartner and Skemp, of 43,391 Japanese adults, it was found that over a 7-year follow-up period, having a purpose in life increases health and longevity across cultures, sexes, and age groups, and explains why some people live to a ripe old age in longevity hotspots. A review on the energy management of people in organizations by researchers Shipers and Hoggins highlights that without such a purpose in life, a lot of time and energy is often fretted away on non-meaningful busyness, further dirtying the already murky waters of finding meaning in what we do. It is clear that younger people are searching for meaning in life, but this search is unrelated to actually finding it. For the most part, people feel pressure to have a perfect life, live the life they feel they should live, or perhaps even the life their parents want them to live, instead of following up on their deep-felt values and passions. Take Paul, for example, a C-suite executive at a major project management firm. By all standards, he is living a fulfilling life. He earns a top salary, manages hundreds of staff, lives in an amazing custom-built home, has loving kids, a holiday home, and can afford almost anything he wants. Though he's unhappy. So one day, he makes a decision to quit his job. He struggles to find his true purpose and dabbles in work that pays the bills as he explores what interests him. And as time goes by, his wife divorces him and he struggles to find his passion. Having focused for so long on the achievements of status and money that have not yielded the satisfaction he had hoped, he continues to have trouble connecting to his true self and true purpose. In further exploration with professional help, he discovers that what he has actually been doing for all those years is living the life his parents wished for him. He continued for so many years as he thought these were the goals that would bring fulfillment, keep everyone happy and wealthy. Yet on reflection, he wished he had lived an entirely different life and followed his passions for astronomy instead. And now starting a new career and going back to studying at university seems like too much of a big leap. Michaela Schijpers and Nicolas Ziegler, scientists from Erasmus University in Rotterdam, Netherlands, suggest that because of reasons such as this, such as Paul's example, and the parental and societal pressures to engage in society in a certain manner, young adults struggle with the important life decisions they're expected to make as they move into early adulthood. And that many people either drift aimlessly through life or keep changing their goals, running around chasing happiness. Their research highlighted that even if people search for meaning, they may not find it, unless they are prompted to do so in a more structured and evidence-based manner. Today's guest, Joseph Henderson, is the practical and hopeful example of what happens when we do search for meaning in a structured manner. Known as the people's champion of parkour, Joseph is widely recognized as one of the greatest parkour athletes. In this interview, he alludes to his success being a result of finding meaning through his actions and proactively continuing to create this meaning. His structured approach to creating a purpose for himself has enabled him to create a career that many would think implausible decades ago. He's been able to taste the fruits of living a purpose-filled and meaningful life. Welcome, Joseph. I'm excited to have this chat.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited too.
For people that don't know free running and parkour, can you explain the background to the sport?
Parkour was originated in France about 30 years ago. Some young guys on the streets of Nice, like a kind of ghetto of Paris, influenced by military and firefighting, like obstacle courses. They started to play around on the streets with the idea of becoming as strong and as capable physically and mentally as possible, with the idea of some sort of higher goal of being able to help society or be competent and able to be used if any situation arose in which they were needed. They had a kind of motto, the pronunciation of which I'm sure I'm about to slaughter, but etre fort, etre utilité, something along those lines, which essentially means to be strong, to be useful. And so they would practice being able to navigate around their environment, whether it was a city or nearby forests, just as efficiently as possible. They would also train martial arts and things like that. It was the part around moving around an environment efficiently, which sort of caught on and started to spread around the globe. It was very much tied in with the kind of rise of YouTube and social media and through the internet and videos, and all this sort of virality spread to the point at which now it's like a recognized sport and has hundreds of thousands of people practicing worldwide and some really strong community across the globe, and has kind of morphed from something that was initially really about just efficiency and being strong to be useful into something that now incorporates style and competition and a lot of filmmaking and things like this. It's like very much become a kind of, extreme or urban sport now, like similar to skateboarding or snowboarding, with an entire sort of culture and community behind it.
Both free running and parkour participants seek to reimagine, mostly in urban spaces, and find new ways to move through areas. Developed from military obstacle course training, parkour includes flipping, running, climbing, swinging, vaulting, jumping, plyometrics, rolling, and quadrupedal movement, whatever is suitable for a given situation to get from point A to point B in the quickest way possible. Free running is a similar activity but emphasizes the performance side of parkour, with stylistic flips, tricks, and acrobatics. And Joseph has taken the playful art form of free running to the next level professionally, both in his movies and in competition. According to discipline founders, parkour is an individual discipline of physical and mental control, while free running is more theatrical and social sport of physical expression. In the real world, though, the differences between the two disciplines are blurry, and there can be confusion even among participants. Philosophy plays an even more important role in parkour than in free running. In fact, Many of the most prominent athletes in parkour have clarified that parkour is not a sport, but an art or a discipline. It involves seeing one's environment in a new way and envisioning innovative navigation. A bench or staircase is no longer just a single-use item. It becomes a never-ending opportunity to move on it, around it, across it, through it, over it, or under its features. To achieve the creativity of mind and dexterous movement that many athletes could only dream about, elite parkour and free running athletes suggest it requires an intense focus on the self, on merging mind and body, and being able to overcome physical and mental obstacles. Raymond Bell, one of the original composers of this art or physical form, described parkour as a means of self-refinement and improving physical and mental control. An emerging philosophy of parkour is that of human reclamation, or moving naturally through an environment in a way that has been lost in civilization. The idea is to interact with and use the physical world rather than simply be directed by it. Like any sport taken to its limit, it involves a merging of self within the act. Though parkour demands this synthesis even at more elementary beginner stages of progression. Perhaps you have felt like the composer as you jump up onto the side of a wall, balance for a few seconds, and then try to jump down or walk across the top of the narrow wall. Or perhaps, whilst walking along the beach or forest, you've jumped from rock to rock, playing with the natural environment, testing your ability. The essence of parkour and free running is really no different.
It's a fascinating sport, and one that I think is so amazing to watch because everyone can relate to it. You know, everyone has jumped off a something, you know, and they can relate to how difficult it is to jump and to run and to do sort of difficult maneuvers just in our back garden or whatever. And
I think the fact that there is, unlike, you know, skateboarding or snowboarding or any other sports like that, really, there's nothing else involved other than your body and the environment that you're interacting with. And I think you're right. Like, that definitely does give a level of relatability to the average person that you wouldn't get in other sports. The fact, you know, everyone's run, everyone's jumped before. And so to just see that taken to its extreme, I suppose, is something that everyone can kind of appreciate the difficulty of, or the pursuit of.
Yeah.
And that anyone can kind of get involved with on some level.
Yeah, that's the most inspiring thing. You know, you watch it and then you want to go and take your back garden on. What do you love about it? What keeps you challenged and interested in it?
I think this is something that becoming familiarized with the concept of flow has helped me to understand, because there is especially as I've taken my training, I suppose, to a higher and higher level and become more and more serious about it. Like, there are moments which are just pure, you know, fun. Like, you're with close friends and you're challenging yourself and laughing and joking and having a good time. But the times that do provide the most meaning, I think the times that really have kept me involved for this length of time and have made me so serious about wanting to pursue it, the times when actually in the moment there's not a whole lot of joy happening. There's, you know, I'm scared because the challenge I'm doing is consequential if I fail. There's physical pain because I'm tired and achy, and maybe I'm competing or I'm shooting for something, so there's pressure on me too. And it's like, in the moment it can be painful and stressful, and yet it is those times that are the times that I really relish, and the times that I feel like is what provides me with the most satisfaction, and really is what I strive for when I'm doing parkour, and the reason that I do it. But yeah, becoming familiarized with the concepts of flow have helped me to understand why that is, because it seems unnatural at first. It's like, but why would I want to be in these situations where at the time I'm kind of suffering? And, you know, of course, as you would know, flow can certainly help to explain why that is.
Yeah, flow certainly offers a kind of a growth principle where we're invited back again to meet that challenge, skill, balance, and test ourselves in a sort of optimal fashion. And the rewards and meaning that we get from that are quite incredible, really, as well as the fantastic feeling of kind of everything else that's not important in the world shutting down, and just a total focus on what is. And the small moments or longer moments, we're able to get a bit more clarity within our consciousness, and it kind of allows us to become more developed and more skilled and complex person, which is probably what Aristotle was talking a lot about back in his time.
It's essentially, a way to be constantly challenging myself, to be testing a skill set against a variety of challenges and having the ability to control the difficulty of the challenges and constantly be pushing that and matching them to my skill set in a way that adequately challenges me and promotes growth within that skill set and generally mentally. I think that a lot of the challenges, particularly there's a lot of overcoming mental barriers in parkour. It seems like a very physical activity on the surface, but I think that the hardest challenges that you have to overcome are really mental ones, dealing with fear. And, anyone can run and jump as far as they can and try and get further. And it doesn't take that much of a degree of skill or like you don't have to push yourself too hard to just progress physically. But it's when the mental challenges come into play, when you're doing things that have like consequence if you were to fail, or things that you aren't totally comfortable with, and pushing skills in an area that you're maybe not as comfortable with. And when you're having to overcome fear and really work through mental processes of like getting from a point where you're mentally not prepared to do something to a point where you are totally prepared and committed to doing something. I think those sort of challenges progress you, not just within parkour, but I feel like they've strengthened me mentally, just generally. And it's a skill set that can be applied to any area of life where you're having to overcome mental barriers like that. I think in terms of applying flow to life as a whole, the way in which I orient myself and set objectives and break them down into smaller, achievable objectives that provide me with consistent and regular feedback on whether I'm on the right track and meeting those objectives is something that's very important to me, something that's helped me a lot to direct and to achieve in my life, and has certainly come as a result of learning about flow, and certainly become a much more active and conscious process as a result of my like increasing knowledge of flow.
And do you find that when your intention is towards that meaning, that flow, that self-expression, either in parkour or outside, how does that respond in your life? Do you feel that you do get more meaning back, or there is a better performance, or do you sort of feel like there's any effect that has on you?
Yeah, I think even just as a way to guide the choices that you make, it can, of course, be difficult to know where to direct your life, what to aim for, how to fill your time, if you don't have some sort of framework to orient yourself around, some kind of guidelines, some sort of ideal to strive for. And obviously, religion could provide that for some people. Some people are very, without having to consciously think about meaning, they might have, just have always been on one particular thing, and whether it's some sort of career, like maybe someone's always wanted to be a doctor, and that just provides a sense of meaning for their entire life as they strive to do that. There's a lot of people who don't necessarily have any obvious framework around which to guide the choices that they make and the things that they strive for. And the idea of flow, the idea of optimal experiences being achievable, and the idea of there being a set way to find meaning and a set concept that there are certain activities and a certain way of looking at life, a certain state of consciousness in which to strive for, that can provide the greatest meaning and the greatest satisfaction, is something that can be incredibly valuable in orienting where to set goals and what direction to be choosing.
And how does that tie into like your objectives? So if you've got an objective to do a particular competition, or to sort of nail a particular route that you've kind of got in your mind that you want to do, or a particular challenge in the future that you've sort of thought about a lot and you've got a desire to do, and whatever that may be, how does it integrate into your objectives of creating a path to doing that or achieving that?
Well, my process for directing and like trying to achieve anything, I suppose my general process for how I orient my life is that I'll reflect like internally and set an overarching goal, like some ultimate objective, some far off idea of what ultimately I'd like to achieve in whatever time frame. And then from that, I'll break down that ultimate objective into a series of much smaller objectives that lead towards that. And then keep repeating that process, breaking everything down until I get to the point where in front of me, I have a list of things that I should do today, and then another list tomorrow. And having these objectives of the smallest scale objectives, which are ultimately leading towards something greater. And then I think the important thing then is that the ultimate goal can more or less be forgotten, and you can just focus on the everyday tasks that need to be achieved, and keeping that idea of this ultimate goal just in the back of your mind, just to, I suppose the only value of keeping that, of having that ultimate objective is to provide a sense of meaning and keep giving you that little bit of satisfaction every time you complete one of your everyday goals. But other than that, it's like thinking about it too much just abstracts your goals too far from everyday reality, and ultimately I think leads, from what I found, to not getting closer to achieving them anyway. It is the breaking down of those like large, far off goals into achievable everyday tasks, which is what keeps providing you with a consistent sense of meaning and keeps you on track to ultimately achieving those far off goals. And I think to sort of put that in the vocabulary of flow, it's like that ultimate objective that you set is the provider of meaning. It allows like everyday events and the everyday tasks that you've set to be linked to each other. So there's a temporal order and a causal connection between each of the tasks and events that would otherwise be distinct from each other. And it allows for you to reveal that purpose in action, to express your goals in like consistent and predictable ways, and allows you to essentially unify the entirety of your life and to unify those everyday moments into one single flow experience. Because you are constantly working with this idea of a higher goal in mind, you're constantly being fed the sense of meaning. But then the breaking down of that goal allows for you to have some sort of system of like regular and consistent feedback, which is an important concept within flow. For an activity to be successful in producing flow, you want that to be receiving regular and consistent feedback, to be knowing where you're at in relation to where you want to be. And that's how I apply flow into life as a whole and use it as a framework for choosing direction.
In psych language, you probably practically reverse engineered it really, really well. And in psych language, we talk a lot about having that initial vision, which allows our psychophysiology and our neurology and the other more subconscious components of ourself to form a reality that gives us an end state that then allows decision making to be much easier. But then the focus is more on the process. And as you said, breaking them all down into many objectives or process goals, which then allows us to kind of go to the next thing and the next thing without this overwhelming outcome and distraction.
Exactly. It ensures that those goals are achievable and that your skills match the opportunities for action, rather than just becoming anxious in the face of a seemingly impossibly difficult task of achieving like ultimate far off goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as our focus becomes on that outcome, we kind of almost disempower ourselves, because we're constantly putting ourselves in a position of we're not there yet, rather than focusing our full attention on what we can do right now. Well, it's great to hear a story where all of that is happening in action. And you kind of touched a little bit on the congruency of those goals, of them all kind of interlinking into one to make this sort of powerful momentum of things occurring in your life. And how important do you feel is the kind of that internal congruency in terms of the goals you're chasing having a meaning for you, and in order to kind of reach the successes or reach the states of flow that you want to?
I think it's incredibly important. It's just absolutely integral to having a sense of meaning in your everyday life. I think that, as we touched on, the overall objective should be like that. How did you say it? The vision. You don't want to be focusing on it too much, because it can lead to a sense that you're you're never close to it. It seems like a challenge, just too much to take on. Not having that sort of overarching objective, that vision, from my experience, it leaves one with the feeling that they're sort of just meaninglessly drifting without purpose or without something to strive for. Even if those short-term goals are set, they're less likely to be achieved because alone, abstracted from the vision of an ideal future, like abstracted from that ultimate goal, the everyday task can feel sort of purposeless. And it's like, how can one have drive to do something that serves no ultimate purpose?
Yeah, how does that energy gather momentum, and how do you focus your energy in a direction when there's no north to the compass?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The completion of the immediate objectives is completely subject to the whim of motivation, which is transient. It's fleeting. Like motivation can come and go, like the weather. And what is needed to ensure the completion of those immediate everyday tasks, of those immediate objectives, is discipline. And that discipline comes in servitude to a higher cause, which is that ultimate objective, that vision. It's that sense of discipline, that sense that you know what you're working towards. And because of that, you have this discipline which allows you to wake up in the morning without a shred of will to complete a task, and yet get up and complete it anyway. It's the state of mind that allows you to be totally divorced from those fleeting feelings of motivation, which seem to come largely as an extent of just extrinsic circumstance, like whether, you can watch some super motivational movie and be all pumped up to go get at it and work for something, and then wake up the next morning and be tired and decide, no, I think I'll stay in bed for a while. But it's that state of mind where you're able to completely have no motivation, have no shred of will to go and complete the objectives that you've set for yourself. And yet you get up and you do so anyway. It's that state of mind that's required for progress to occur. And it is that state of mind, I think, which lends itself to the sensation of flow and an optimal experience.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at flow as this ordered consciousness, in a way that things are flowing in the same direction all at once, and it feels effortless and smooth because there's so much congruency and synchronicity internally with it. Where we sort of don't have that end state, the mind, and I think it's important to touch on this because, there's a lot of people who might be quite focused and directed in one area, but when it comes to other areas of our life, we're kind of a bit more laissez-faire about it. When we don't have any direction, like you said, we become a consequence of what's happening around us or in our environment, or other extrinsic sort of factors come in. And it can sometimes feel like a bit of a, oh man, I gotta think about what I actually want, and I gotta get serious about something. And often a lot of us will do it within our main thing, our career or whatever that might be. But to do it in other areas of life, which are just as important, whether that's our relationships or our finances or, whatever it is, if we don't, we kind of run the risk of what Csikszentmihalyi talks a lot about, of entropy, of the kind of the chaos of the consciousness. And as our brain is constantly trying to figure out in this kind of Bayesian theory mode of constantly predicting what's going to happen next. It's always predicting about what's going to happen next in reference to a particular end state that we've assumed or wanted or visioned or whatever. And when that's sort of missing or unclear, there's this kind of constant confusion in our mind and in our consciousness. And it can be exhausting, among other things. And in some ways it's sort of comfortable in the beginning, but then we keep hitting roadblocks and it becomes frustrating or exhausting. And do you find when you've got that intention or direction, or you're looking for meaning in other areas of your life, it has a kind of reciprocal effect into everything else, or not really?
Definitely. Yeah. Having something that I'm striving towards and working for every day provides a sense that I'm doing something meaningful, that sense of purpose, and ultimately a sense of satisfaction, of happiness, which bleeds into every other aspect of life and improves the quality of life experience generally. Just having such a huge difference between sort of drifting through life, feeling purposeless, and really just charging through life, feeling driven and having something that you're working towards, and every day be striving for that. And just the way in which it affects consciousness, the difference that I observe in my mind when I'm driven as opposed to drifting is a state which remains present through everything in life, like not just in the pursuit of whatever that goal is, but just like puts my mind in a much happier and more driven state for everything that happens during a day.
Do you want to help others unleash their performance? Do you want an internationally recognized accreditation to stand out amongst the crowd? Or do you want the playbook I use every day when helping professionals to be their best? Join us at my training organization, the Flow Center. We're on a mission to train a fellowship of expert practitioners to work with us and help make the world a better place. And whether you want to join the Flow Center team as a flow coach, or continue your professional leadership development, or integrate these valuable skills into your organization and team, go to flowcenter.org today. The meaning of life used to be an elusive concept. But thanks to the productivity of positive psychology, we now have more knowledge of how people can live a meaningful life. For example, personal goal setting and goal attainment plans clearly help people gain a sense of direction and a sense of purpose in life. When our goals are self-endorsed, well-being is enhanced. A primary premise of concordant goals and self-determination theory. Furthermore, engaging in life crafting, an activity focused on cultivating meaningful goals in life, allows us to take control of our life, increasing our performance and happiness. A study by Noura and Oyserman showed that children who were guided to visualize their future purpose, driven self, and experience a connection between their current and adult future self, worked more and attained better school grades than children guided to experience low connection between current and adult future self. Impressive, but we can all imagine ourselves being successful. But this does not mean that we will find meaning in these actions. In further examination on how to create meaning, a review by Martella and Steger, published in the Journal of Positive Psychology, examining the defining elements of meaning in life, concluded that making meaning had 3 pillars: coherence, purpose, and significance. In short, when we take charge of our goals and ensure that they are congruent with our values and lifestyle, hold meaning, and are important, individuals will have a higher subjective well-being, higher vitality, higher levels of meaningfulness, and lower symptoms of depression. For many, it might take a life-changing or transformative experience to shake up our current reality and create more meaningful goals or find a new purpose. These disorientating dilemmas, often found in events such as loss, trauma, or stressful life transitions, whilst unearthing at the time, can be very helpful for our life journey. However, we need not wait for or lean on such evoking experiences. Research suggests that a lack of meaning and purpose will often leave us dissatisfied with ourselves and our relationships, an effect that can be compounding. So every day is important. The message here is to keep thinking about our purpose in life and the meaning we take from our actions at all stages of life, especially when we feel our goals need to be addressed. Specifically, Scheipers and Ziegler, in their article Life Crafting as a Way to Find Purpose and Meaning in Life, suggest 7 tips. 1. Discover our values and passion. 2. Reflect on current and desired competencies and habits. 3. Reflect on present and future social life. 4. Reflect on a possible future career. 5. Write about the ideal future. 6. Write down specific goal attainment and if-then plans. And 7. Make public commitments to the goals set. This process offers a structured methodology to life crafting, allowing us to make more meaning and cohere a purpose in our lives.
I'll never be happy with my ability. I'll only be happy with the rate at which it's progressing. And what I meant by that was that I'll never be at a point, like relating specifically to parkour, for example, I'll never be at a point at which I'm like, God, I'm really happy with the level that I am. You know, I couldn't dream of being any better or whatever. This is really like the level that I always set out to be, and now I'm here and I've made it. You never feel that way. I'll get fleeting happiness from having achieved something that previously wasn't achievable for me. But the real long-term fulfillment always comes from just noticing that I am progressing, not ever being happy with the current state that I'm occupying. It's the movement that provides the fulfillment, not the staying in a place, even if that place is a good place. Being still always results in stagnation. The most important thing I feel I could bestow on an earlier version of myself or someone who hasn't thought about the same things is really just that idea of setting a vision and breaking it down to the point that you have something to do right now. It's that process that allows for that consistent thread to be allowed to run through the entirety of your life, from the thing that you're doing in the present moment to some great idea of a future goal, is absolutely the thing that I feel has changed my life and has provided me with just much greater senses of meaning and allowed for me to achieve in a way that I didn't have the capacity to before. I think that it is the development of that process that has really made the biggest difference to me.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time, Joseph. It's been a pleasure. We've talked about flow being a point of meaning and engagement, as well as the focus on purpose and meaning to kind of engineer flow and the process of finding that whilst still achieving, you know, many goals that we want, and your process of breaking them down into smaller objectives, and has been certainly interesting for me and hopefully fruitful for those listening. If anyone wants to find out a bit more about you, which I wholeheartedly encourage, just watching some of Joseph's videos is amazing and inspiring. And what's the best place for them to meet you or check you out?
Instagram is the best place. I sort of link everything else that I do through Instagram. My handle is at joseph.hendo. So anyone that's interested in learning more can go through there.
Time to flip the mic.
Do you have a process for redirecting yourself, and how do you manage to effectively integrate, or I suppose turn your life into...
You know, I think when I'm off track, it's generally because I'm consumed by what I think other people require of me, or what other people think of me, or what I think I should be doing in the eyes of others, or in the eyes of humanity or society, or it's always coming from a place of fear, always coming from that place of I'm not there yet in this imaginary place that I've made up that I think I should be. But when I'm kind of coming from a place of an internal inspiration, personally being inspired, then things tend to flow. And you know, my process very much is just to disconnect from the life in the world. And, you know, if I'm kind of find myself deep in those other places, then a total disconnect. You know, I go surfing, I go into the wilderness, I unplug and I get back to who I am. And my kind of quick version of that is to always watch a sunset and a sunrise, and I can be transported sort of very quickly. You know, they're kind of triggers for me, but I also have kids, and it's just having a random 30-second play with one of them suddenly resets everything that I thought was important to, you know, what actually is important, where there's that initial experience and focus on connection and meaning and engagement and love and fulfillment. And when I have those experiences, all the kind of the achievements and the tick lists that have been maybe occupying my mind in the day suddenly become into insignificance, and not in insignificance as in I shouldn't do them, but more the stress around them become insignificant, and my kind of consciousness being consumed about them becomes insignificant, which ironically frees me up to actually focus and just get them done a lot quicker.
Making decisions and choosing direction from a point of inspiration rather than from a point of fear.
Yeah, I often call it my true north. And I notice it in other people. When they have a very sort of focused true north, then their decision making becomes just easy because it's, which option is most aligned with my true north? That one. Okay. And so it becomes a simple process rather than an agonizing scenario that we think about or emotions start welling up about.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been equally fascinating for me. I appreciate you having me on and taking the time to talk through some of these interesting ideas with me.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much.
Flow Unleashed.
If you would like to find out more about Joseph Henderson and his amazing movies, please see the show notes. Thank you for listening to Flow Unleashed. If you enjoyed listening, please subscribe to get notified when our next episode drops. The more people that subscribe, the better I can make the show for you. Equally, please leave a review. Your review will go a long way to helping others find this pod. Until the next time, thank you for listening to Flow Unleashed.